In celebration of my first Horror Game Iceberg video hitting 1 million views, I'm going to be making a secondary iceberg of all of the games that I missed or were pointed out by commenters. If you somehow don't know what an iceberg is, it's a chart of a bunch of info on a certain topic from least to most obscure. This is the second Roblox Horror Games Iceberg with 99 entries. I'm going to try and keep tier 1 as short as possible, as most of it you have probably already heard of. Nico's Nextbots is a Roblox game based on the Gary's mod Nextbot Chase mod. The game's main point is getting chased around the map by PNGs that radiate sound effects, such as a Freddy Fazbear mug, Sanic, a Hanna-Barbera's Henocide, and more. The game is currently one of the most popular on the list and one of the fastest growing. Within less than a month, the game had already hit 100 million visits. Front Page Horror Game is a game that pokes fun at the onslaught of rushed and lazily made chapter-based horror games that came out around 2021 and early 2022, which were all attempting to clone the Mimic. The Maze is a game about exploring an underground maze-like cave system with monsters in it. There isn't really a story to the game, but there may be one soon considering the upcoming reboot that was teased in the description, which hasn't come out yet. The game is on its way to hitting 200 million visits as of August 2022. Slice Entertainment's Survive the Killer game is an immensely popular version of the classic hide from the killer and escape horror game subgenre. This game hit 1 billion visits not too long ago and also has the developer of Work at a Pizza Place on board, which I find pretty interesting. Aperiophobia is the fear of eternal torture, and the Roblox game is a backrooms and liminal space themed horror game which plays into exactly this phobia by adding monsters to the backrooms, which is totally not going against what the backrooms was thought of as creepy for in the first place. As well, the original version of the game with over 100 million visits has been shut down and moved to a different place due to the original owner being terminated for his terrible reputation. Isle is a game created by Bedorkby in April of 2019 about surviving on an island with minimal resources and fighting off the experiment creature on the island, all the while trying to escape the island. SCP-096 Demonstration is a game I've seen many re-uploads of over the last 6 or so years, but the game itself surrounds a model of SCP-096 in a white maze. The original was created in June of 2015 and is now closed, although a re-upload of the game from 2017 now has well over 100 million plays. Spectre is a phasmophobia-inspired ghost hunting styled horror game by Lithium Labs. You and up to 3 other players explore the map and find evidence to guess what kind of ghost from a list of ghosts is haunting the location. This one is about getting chased around by a frog doll. That's all I need to say, I think. Vampire Hunters is a series of murder mystery styled Roblox horror games created by Zack Attack, the creator of games such as Glitch from the last video, between 2010 and 2017. In total, the 3 installations have garnered over 67 million visits, with Vampire Hunters 2, created in 2014, being the most popular of the 3. A Dream You've Had Before is a weird chorus styled game created by Forslug in January of 2021. In the game, you can spend Robux to place notes in a mostly repeating space, which gets more dangerous to explore the farther you go. Your Last Thoughts at the End of Time is also a game with a very similar concept by the same creator, this time placing notes around a default Roblox starter place from 2010. The farther you get away from the spawn house, the more dangerous it gets. Frigid Dusk is a multiplayer horror game created by I Don't Care Studio. In the game, there's a mutagenic bioagent that, according to the description, developed into an unstoppable weapon. Said unstoppable weapon was stolen and it's your job to retrieve it. Judy is a multi-chapter Roblox horror game about investigating the things that led to the disappearance of a Hollywood star named Judy. In each chapter, you investigate locations relating to said Hollywood star and the events that led up to her disappearance. Bloodfest by Done Yes is a zombie survival styled horror game that was created in 2011, which gets harder the farther you progress until an eventual boss fight. The game was one of the finals for Roblox's 2014 Scare Us Silly game contest, which you will see mentioned multiple times throughout this video. Since then, the game has garnered over 60 million visits. Also, yes, this game is called Bloodfest for a reason. I don't even think the average human has this much blood. Doors by Elsplash is essentially a fancy version of Rooms from the last video, where you have to try and survive through the highest number of rooms possible. Whether it be completing puzzles, surviving a high-speed chase, or whatever the game decides to throw at you. Cult of the Cryptids is yet another chapter-based Roblox horror game, this time by DDBP Productions. I don't know what that stands for. This game in particular is Siren Head themed. In each chapter, there are goals you have to complete to get to the end, and totems to collect along the way. Darkness by Lolorus is an FPS-styled horror game created in October of 2013. The survivors have to kill a dark, semi-transparent being in the darkness played by a selected player from the server who is given a scythe. As of 2022, the game is entirely broken, same with the sequel, Darkness 2, which improves upon Darkness 1. Similar to the Darkness series I just mentioned, Smooth Block Models Don't Blink is another horror game where one player is chosen to be a doctor and a few players will be chosen as weeping angels. If the players see the weeping angel can't move. However, when the player either blinks or breaks eye contact, the weeping angel can yet again become hostile. The doctor's job is to kill the weeping angel. In a Roblox blog article from 2014, Jack Smirking Revenge says that unlike games such as Darkness and the Stalker, the name of the game here is not avoidance or run for your life, it's confrontation, which sums it up perfectly. Zombie Tower is a classic horror game created by in March of 2010. The game is pretty self-explanatory. You spawn outside a tower filled with zombies and you have to climb to the top and kill all of the zombies awaiting you. Minus Descendants is a Roblox horror game created by Vanilla Deluxe. In Minus Descendants, you get to the lowest floor you can in an abandoned facility, all the while pressing buttons on each floor and avoiding the entities that can be found on each of them. Us or Toys is another chapter-based Roblox horror game about a field trip to a toy factory gone wrong. As well, the game takes clear inspiration from things like the Walton Files in its story and presentation. Murder is a murder mystery horror game created by Maximum ADHD, formerly known as Clone Trooper 1019. The game is directly inspired by the Gmod minigame of the same name, and it was created in 2014 and was popular for a few years. However, a Roblox update caused the game's scripts to break, which made the game unplayable for a few years, until they were fixed in early 2022. It Lurks is the first in a series of 2 chapter-based horror games created by ROBLOX. It starts with your dad leaving before a warning appears on the TV saying not to leave your house or let anyone in your house. There are 5 chapters and 1 ending in the first game, and in the sequel, They Lurk, there are multiple endings and 7 chapters. Also, since It Lurks hasn't been updated in a while, the character movement animation is completely broken and gets worse when you start to sprint. Confined, created by Lego Man 650 Tyridge 77 and Stroudy, was the winner of the 2014 Roblox Game Creation Challenge. Scare Us Silly. The game was created in 10 days and is a single-player horror game based on exploring an 1800s spirit-ridden household. Kampong is a story-based Roblox horror game based on various Malaysian and Indonesian urban legends. There's also a second game that's attached to it that's accessible from the lobby where Albert can be seen as one of these, which is, interesting. Remaining is a 2019 Roblox horror game with the description reading an unfortunate event occurred at the facility. The facility is dark and abandoned and your main job is to get out. The Apartment is a 2019 Roblox horror game created by Tubpong. In the game, you walk to room 705 of the apartment after your friend calls for help, and when you get there, the friend is dead and a note is on the floor telling you to get out. Pinstripe Murders by Phantom Archives is a surrealist retro horror game similar to those by Puppet Combo and Brute Jumble about a murderer clown in a hotel. Ghost Hunt is a game from 2011 about hunting for ghosts in an abandoned hospital that is said to be haunted. This game still receives occasional updates every once in a while, almost 11 years later. Before 3 AM is a 2-chapter game about being a security officer and having to deal with a shadowy figure with murderous intent. Containment is a puzzle-based Roblox horror game that was created by Octic in 2021. The game is multiple puzzles and places to escape before a boss fight that happens at the end of the game. Fluttershy's Lovely Home is a Roblox game that isn't public anymore, but the description reads this.
Fluttershy invites you over to her house for a playdate. Look around the house while Fluttershy walks you through. A great game for those who want a friendly, peaceful game they can play.
The thing is, there's a reason this is on the Horror Games Iceberg, because this game isn't as innocent as it portrays itself. While this game was open between 2014 and 2017, it garnered over 1 million visits. You Look Happy is a Roblox myth game that was created in 2019. When joining the game, you will be put in True Face's house on a sunny day, which has collectible eyeballs and different teleporters to variations of the house throughout, which basically portray the house owner's depressive spiral. Trick or Traders was a Roblox horror game that was a final in the 2014 Scare Us Silly Game contest. There are 3 classes: Bad Dream, Trick, and Nightmare. If you've been chosen to be a Trick, you have to collect candy around the map. Nightmares are giant monsters with scythes that chase around the Tricks and kill them. When the Tricks are killed, they turn into Bad Dreams, which are tiny versions of the Nightmare that run around and quite literally harass other players. Like, seriously, that is what you were instructed to do. Verbatim. Hollow Mansion is an exploration-style, quote, horror game created in 2008 by Maelstrontimer, which still received updates as late as 2020. The game has no jump scares or monsters and is more of a spooky showcase game about collecting parts to get more parts to complete puzzles. Moirai was a social experiment game of sorts with horror elements that was put online outside of Roblox around 2013. You start in a village where you soon learn that a woman named Julia has gone missing, and that moans were later heard in a nearby cave. You're given a knife and told to find the source of the noise, and in the cave you find a bloody farmer which will say something odd.
I heard moans, what have you done? How to finish this game? What?
I heard moans, what have you done? That was me orgasming. Alright, I will let you go.
What the?
I heard moans, what have you done? I have masturbated and spread my cum over the dead body of a strange.
Later, you find a bloody Julia laying on the cave floor who will ask you to put her out of her misery. If you do or not, you will still end up with blood on you. When bumping into another farmer in the cave, you'll be asked why you're covered in blood, and receive a text box to input a sentence into, which is what another player will see when they bump into that first bloody farmer. This game got taken off of Steam in 2017 due to its immense popularity and people using exploits to crash the Moirai servers. However, Norns is a Roblox recreation of this Moirai game created by Seiwoom, the owner of Brute Jumble, in 2021. Lightness by Snake Roll is a horror game from 2013 where one player in a server is chosen as the Lightness and everyone has to stay away from them. If you're in close range with the Lightness will start taking your soul away. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese was a multiplayer horror game created by Minitoon, the creator of Piggy, back in 2014. The game is inactive now, but when it first opened 8 years ago, it received some pretty big success, garnering over 9 million visits since. The game itself is also pretty interesting from what footage I've been able to find. The Library is yet another multiplayer Roblox horror game by Captain Sphinx. This time, you're in a library, and of course, you're not alone. Seeds of Darkness was a first-person horror game created in 2009 by Sam Mikado, now known as Evil627. The game mostly focuses on the exploration of some sort of facility, and occasionally killing zombies with a crowbar that you found, which aren't too much of a worry because they're pretty uncommon and die to only 1 or 2 hits. The game is also almost entirely broken as of 2022, however. The Red was a first-person exploration-based horror game created in 2014 by Soybean. The game also has no saves, and if you die once, you have to completely restart. For its time, it was considered one of the best and most graphically detailed Roblox horror games out there. The game revolves around you going through various mysterious and strange places and dealing with hallucinations. The game also takes very clear inspiration from the game Fibrillation in some of its story and levels. Hospital Nightmare 4 by Adrian928 was made in 2011 as a sequel to the incredibly popular Hospital Nightmare 3, which I covered in my last video, as it's one of the most popular Roblox horror games from its era. The fourth one, however, was nowhere near as popular, and was completely different in the story, but still has the same amateur map building, jump scares, and free models. Escape Before It Arrives was a popular horror game created by Haunted USA, who is a Roblox game developer that will reappear multiple times in this iceberg, and is most known for this game and his classic Bloody Mary games. In this game, you have to find an invisible teleporter inside of a house during the daytime, and avoid various ducks, as they're called, in the nighttime. The game was first created in 2010, and was updated frequently until early 2015. Distilled was a public demo of a horror game released in October of 2013 by Tyridge77. The game focused on exploring an abandoned school with various objectives to complete, with the main one being finding your lost brother, all the while trying to maintain your sanity meter and keep it as high as possible. The game was shut down a year or two later, however, as the developers wanted to remake the plot and much of the content of the game, but the game still hasn't been reworked and it's been nearly 8 years since it was last public. Fatal Frame, not affiliated with the actual game named Fatal Frame, is another Scare Us Silly GCC entry created in 2014. The game is now private, so I can't play it myself, but from the footage and screenshots I've been able to find, the game is mostly about exploring some sort of abandoned hospital or miscellaneous facility. Disturbed Planet is an especially interesting entry on this list, as it was a horror exploration Roblox game created in 2010 by none other than Stealth Pilot. While flying around in space, which is a very usual activity might I add, you lose control of your ship and crash on an unknown planet and have to survive. The game was made private only a month or two after it was made, however some footage from the original game from 2010 and some re-uploaded versions of the game do exist. The game has a lot of platforming and puzzle solving to do to increase your clearance level to find parts to repair your ship. 7 Days is another very classic Roblox horror game created by Bransonator1 sometime between 2010 and 2012. This game was re-uploaded a lot, so you may know this game by a different name than 7 Days. This game is another walking simulator with spooky stuff popping up and is a very short game. Obedience by Geomaster is yet another single-player Scare Us Silly final from 2014, which has garnered over 70,000 visits since. The game was mostly about following orders from some sort of walkie-talkie-like device from an unknown person or thing while walking around some sort of giant facility. Sometime in 2017, the game was made private. Bunker is another exploration-based Roblox horror game created by the developer of Remaining, this time about exploring a once full-of-life bunker after a virus runs rampant through the world. This phobia is the fear of smiles. This game of the same name by Smile Ghost OGG is about exactly that. Bro, I fucking alt F4'd. Hello Burp's Return to the Pizzeria is a Roblox FNAF fan game from 2015. That's about it. Also, all of the animatronics are made out of carpet. Ghost in the Machine is yet another Scare Us Silly entry from 2014, created by Soybean, the creator of the Red and Booga Booga of all things. The game has since been made private due to Roblox updates breaking the majority of the game. The game is much shorter than the last, and much darker, and focuses less on completing puzzles and more on exploration and survival. You start at level 39 of an underground facility and have to make your way up and escape. A project formerly known as Do We Have a Problem was a short cinematic horror project created by Stealth Pilot in 2020. 50,000 people played it, and the game is now private with only one low quality recording of it existing. From what we can see, you can spectate a fatal encounter from either the perpetrator or target's point of view. 7 Days Prologue is the prequel to the 7 Days game that I mentioned previously, which has significantly fewer plays than part 1. The game is, I'm pretty sure, supposed to give us a backstory as to why we ended up where we started off in 7 Days episode 1, but in reality it gives me more questions than answers, as we still don't know why we end up where we start in this one either. Oasis is another 2014 Scare Us Silly entry, this time by Maelstronomer, the creator of Hollow Mansion. This one is about waking up on a ship to find out everyone but one person is dead and the ship is in shambles. Not long after, a giant kraken-like monster flings you into the water, causing you to wash up on an abandoned island called the Oasis. Apartment Room 67 is a horror game that takes place in your apartment on a rainy night. Slowly, you'll start to realize that someone is trying to get in. There are multiple ways that the game can end, which I won't spoil here. The game was created in 2021 and has garnered over 140,000 visits since. Boogeyman is a survival horror Roblox game from 2008 created by Ice Eclipse. The objective is to survive the night inside a house with Boogeyman armed with nothing but a pistol. The game is mostly broken now as it's been 14 years since it was created. Ready or Not is another survive a randomly chosen killer type game which sets itself apart from the other games with the same style by its graphics, which stray as far away from Roblox graphics as it can. The game was created in 2020 and is now private, but before it was made private, it garnered over 70,000 visits. Haunted Mansion, not to be confused with the game by Shedletsky of the same name, is a game that was created by Virus, the developer of Survive the Disasters, in 2010. The game revolves around exploring a haunted mansion with monsters in it. Find the Chairs is a interesting horror game by Paper Kitty that was created in 2022. The goal is to help SpongeBob find his chairs. There are multiple mazes to complete with chairs that you eat at the end of each. Yeah, you heard me right. Haunted Chronicles 2 by Skiing 2010 is a classic horror game from the days when most Roblox horror games were either spooky themed obbies or creepy walking simulators with jump scares, also known as 2010. This is the most popular chronicle in the Haunted Chronicles series, with over 70,000 visits. Journey Through the Haunted Mansion is a Haunted Mansion themed obby that was created in 2009 by the user Copyright. The obby was pretty popular at the time of its creation and has well over 20 levels. Darkness by Evil627 is the prequel to the game Seeds of Darkness, created in 2009. This game just seems to be a downgraded version of the previously mentioned Seeds of Darkness game, with lower quality building and scripting. The game was also shut down at some point. Camping Trip of Death by Kumike is an incredibly primitive story-based horror game from June of 2008. The game doesn't seem to at all be finished and starts with a bunch of kids on a camping trip before all of them get killed. The Closet by Golden Dragon Man X is the most 2013 horror game ever, mostly because it came out in 2013. The game starts with you waking up and going into the basement where you start seeing red eyes, and you walk through 5 minutes of Wendev 2 and Haunted USA free model jump scares before looping back to your house, realizing it was all a nightmare. Vienna's Cafe is a game from 2015 about an average cafe in the Austrian countryside that is holding a dark secret. The cafe is completely normal except for one room which takes you to a dungeon. Interesting. Around 2002 or 2003, a flash animated screamer started being sent around through chain emails by the name of Kikia. The flash animation features crude drawings of a boy sitting on a hill and standing before it gets cut off by a loud scream and this ghostly face appears on the screen. This is one of the earliest internet jump scare or screamer videos ever, predating videos like the ghost car video by quite a few years. You may be wondering why I'm telling you any of this. Well, from 2010 to 2013, this face began seeing common usage in Roblox horror games as a jump scare. The origin of the face dates back to an old Japanese website with trailers for Fatal Frame. In the fourth video, the face can be seen for a few seconds. While the face does appear in the trailers, it doesn't appear in the actual game. The prologue to The Haunted Chronicles by Skiing 2010 was created in 2009, and instead of taking place in a haunted church like the second game we mentioned earlier, this one takes place in a haunted mine. The description is especially funny, saying, "I will not be responsible for trauma or insanity caused by this game." Find Markiplier, created in 2021 by Jack and 4, is a horror game about finding and rescuing Markiplier. The game has multiple endings and is certainly interesting. Alright, so GCC Hotel by Immerser is yet another scare silly entry from 2014 with 20,000 visits, and is a short game about exploring an abandoned hotel. Unfortunately, I couldn't play it myself because the game is entirely broken. In the last video, we talked about Haunted USA's Find Your Way Out Before Jason Arrives game from 2009, and earlier in this video, I mentioned Escape Before It Arrives. Now with the context of both of those entries, I'll be able to talk about how much Escape Before It Arrives has changed. In 2011, the earliest version of the game came out after the success of the original Jason game. The game was called Escape Before Jason Arrives and featured Jason in a newly added house, instead of the original Haunted Mansion. And instead of being spawned in the house with him automatically like the original game from 2009, there was a short daytime grace period. In late 2011, Jason was removed from the game and was replaced by one of 12 random monsters referred to as ducks, which was a pretty controversial update, and this is when the game was renamed to Escape Before It Arrives. The next year, the house was revamped and became much more colorful. Unclear's Another is yet another scare a silly entry from 2014 about unraveling mysteries by solving puzzles in a haunted house. The game has well over 60,000 visits and was one of the GCC finalists. We've made it to the very final GCC entry, which is Cliff Fear by Quenty and Axis Angles. This one is one of the least popular by far, with only 20,000 visits. This one is less of a horror game with a story, puzzles, and jump scares and so on, and more of a showcase game. Oasis is the second game with that name on this list and was created by Evil627 in 2008 and was updated until 2014. The game starts with you scaling a mountain with a lighthouse on it before discovering some dark secrets in quotes, which weren't very hidden and weren't very secretive, about the lighthouse. Bloody Mary's Chamber is an unfinished sequel to Bloody Mary Trapped in a Wake by Haunted USA that was teased in another one of Haunted USA's games, Escape Before It Arrives. The game does exist on Roblox, although it has no visits, is private, and only has one favorite. According to the description, it was going to be a Saw-like game. Don't Blink 2 is a cancelled sequel to Smooth Block Model's Don't Blink from 2014, which can be played in quotes for 50 Robux. However, the game is completely unfinished and you can't do anything upon joining. Over 300 people, including me, have bought access to this game. It was planned to release in October of 2018, however it still hasn't been fully released and is entirely unfinished 4 years later. Roblox's Most Haunted House was an official Roblox contest that was held in 2010. The premise was very simple: submit the best haunted house game. 2 prizes were obtainable in the contest: the spooky house for the highest rated places, and the Roblox lantern for the most accurate voters. Sadly, almost every single game from this contest is completely gone, most of them being private or changed into new games within the next year and a half. This contest seems to have been mostly forgotten since, as not a lot of people participated either, since one of the only existing places from this contest only has 400 visits, and even that game isn't what it used to be. The Bell Maze is a 2019 Roblox horror game from 8DSK where you have to click 7 buttons in a maze to escape, all the while avoiding this. Getting killed by this creature will kick you from the game with a message stating, "I am free." Silent Hill 1 Homecoming, also known as Silent Hill 1 The Escape, is an old Roblox horror game from 2013 which was created by Rem25. However, the play slot that it's in has existed since 2010, and there have been a lot of horror games hosted under this play slot, with over 1,000 updates in a 3-year time span. It seems none of these games ever took off, with the current place on Roblox only having a bit over 40,000 visits, with the game's peak in popularity happening in the summer of 2013. The game is now uncopylocked as well, with all of the older versions being accessible through Roblox's asset delivery. Haunted Chronicles 3 Haunted Town is the unfinished sequel to Haunted Chronicles 2 by Skiing 2010. The game was created in 2011 and only has 7,000 visits, and starts you off in a building named the Sewer Entrance between a few houses. The game never ended up getting finished, but someone who may have been the original owner of the account logged in 2021 and added "I might finish this game" to the description. Tier 7 is the tier of games that either only have a few thousand plays at most, or don't exist anymore and have little to no evidence that they did in the first place. Abducted was a horror game created by Tyridge77 in February of 2013. At the time, Lua Learners was an incredibly popular Roblox scripting group and community with its own website, where they would host game development events inspired by things like Ludum Dare, where players were challenged to make an entire game in one weekend. The result of one of these events was Abducted, a short puzzle-based horror game about, well, being abducted. The game was shut down sometime in the following years and was made uncopylocked. The game was also relatively unpopular, only having around 3,000 plays, which can be attributed to a short mention in a Roblox blog post, and only 2 videos existing about the game. It's also entirely broken as of 2022. Manor.exe is a Roblox game with horror elements that was created in 2022 by 8DSK and has gained over 2,000 visits since. The game starts you off in a neighborhood with a bunch of houses filled with these little characters that all have something to say.
You walk out.
Slowly, you'll be able to piece together a story about who owns the place. However, this information is scarce, as it's not allowed to be shared amongst them. There is a badge called "You Shouldn't Have Done That," which used to be obtainable after you somehow let the secrets out. However, this ending has since been removed. You Did Not Save Bradley P118 is a now deleted quote horror game by Clone Trooper 1019 from 2012. I don't know exactly what this game is about nor who Bradley P118 was, but the thumbnail gives me the idea that this game is some sort of lore relating to the Cool Killer horror game series, which is also by Clone Trooper 1019 and was incredibly popular at the time. Only a few months later, the game was replaced by Snow Test and was made private. No footage of the game exists. In February of 2013, a testers-only demo of the original A Farmer and His Scarecrow from May of 2012 was released on Roblox by one of Haunted USA's friends. If you're not one of the allowed testers, you'll be immediately killed and not be able to view anything. However, without this, you'll be able to see that this original version from a year and a half before the full version was released was very different. It also tells an entirely different story about the daughter being tormented by a ghost that loves human flesh. In the Dark is an obscure Roblox puzzle-based horror game with only 4,000 visits that was created in 2020. The game starts you off in a house with all the lights off, and your first goal is to turn on all of the lights, which forces you to explore the house and will lead you to learn that this house you're in is not exactly normal. I'm not going to spoil any of the puzzles in the game because I highly recommend you check it out yourself. 1x1x1x1's Grave is a mysterious game that was created by JJ5x5 in April of 2012. Nothing is known about the game itself as it only has a few thousand visits and has been private for years. No real footage of the game exists either, so its contents aren't entirely known, other than a 3-second corrupted clip that shows nothing. The only thing that exists from this game is an old screenshot from October of 2012, which archived the thumbnail of the game. Always Watching is an inactive and private game that Rye Citrus, the creator of Banana Eats, made in 2015. While researching for this video, I found this game in my old favorites from around late 2015 to early 2016, and I have no idea how I found it or what was in the game. The game only has 200 visits, and the description reads, "This moon will never stop watching, ever." 13 Dots by No Do Not is a re-upload of one of Tinfoilbot's Orb games from 2014, with all of the decals being converted to grayscale, characters being given a bruised face decal, and creepy things being scattered around the map, with the occasional scream sound effect playing randomly. Shadow Leak is an obscure Roblox horror game created by 8DSK. The game casts you as an engineer tasked with stopping the shadow leaks in different sectors of a facility. These shadow leaks have led to the creation of a bunch of shadow monsters that haunt the facility, and you have to stop these shadow leaks while simultaneously avoiding the monsters they created. The game is 2 years old, has 5,000 visits, and still receives occasional updates. Since some of the people watching this didn't watch the first part of the iceberg, I have to very briefly re-explain the difference between Face Your Fear and Face Your Fears. Face Your Fears Singular was a Roblox horror game series created by Haunted USA, Burton12, and Chowder747 in 2009. The most popular entry was the second game, The Hospital, which has garnered over 190,000 visits since 2009. Face Your Fears, plural, was a Roblox horror game series created by Bobulator, starting in 2008 and ending in late 2009. The most popular entry was the first, aka Haunted Hotel, which has since garnered over 200,000 visits. Face Your Fear Death's Requiem was a cancelled entry of the Face Your Fear series, first created in 2011 and last updated in early 2013. Sneak preview of up-and-coming Face Your Fears The School was a short preview of an upcoming entry in Bobulator's Face Your Fears series, created in late 2009. The full game was never released to my knowledge, and the game was made private. What's especially interesting is that not only is it not present in his game hub where all of his other entries can be found, but the preview game was last updated 8 months ago. Hotel Reminger is a lost Roblox horror game that was created in 2011 by Haunted USA. All we know about it is that it took place in a hotel, it was unfinished, and it wasn't too popular, with most of the already existing place visits only existing because it was a different game previously. Haunted Cart Ride was a series of 3 games that Haunted USA created between early 2010 and late 2010. These games stayed public on Roblox until late 2011 as they weren't very popular. In 2012, a collab between 2 popular Roblox horror game developers, Daypale and Haunted USA, was teased, but nothing ever happened. Escape Before They Arrive is a now deleted sequel to Haunted USA's Escape Before It Arrives game that was created in 2012 and made private sometime in the following year. Only one gameplay video exists. As well, you can fight back against the monsters instead of running and hiding in hopes of finding a teleporter, with a pistol being a collectible item in the map. Saw refers to an obscure, now deleted Saw-inspired Roblox horror game created in 2011 by Haunted USA. The game was originally deleted for being too graphic and gory, causing it to be remade later that year. No screenshots or footage exist of the original, but one 16-second clip does exist of the remake. This is the only footage of the game that exists, with a player standing still inside of a corroded room filled with bloodied bodies. There was also one screenshot of the game from while it was being remade, which comes from the original thumbnail of the game, but that's all we have. Bloody Mary 2 Gone was the unfinished sequel to Bloody Mary Trapped in a Wake that was first teased as far back as 2012. For a few short periods of time, the game was publicly available on Haunted USA's account before Roblox supposedly took it down. In 2014 though, Haunted USA left a string of clues in his earlier Roblox horror games on how to find an alternate account which held the unfinished copy of Bloody Mary 2. In 2015, Haunted USA quit Roblox for good before coming back in June of 2022 for one last time and updating his bio on not only his whereabouts but the situation surrounding Bloody Mary 2. The alt account's name has never been found and Haunted USA has since forgotten it. Some people say they have found it and that they're close to solving the puzzle to finding the alt account, but I'm unsure if any of these claims have any validity.